Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC 276 and this card is just stacked from top to bottom. It's an incredible card. And on the main card, we have a very important middleweight fight, Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. And this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this fight. I've already done a bunch of UFC 276 prediction videos. I will link those all down in the description if you want to go check them out after this. But I also have more UFC 276 predictions coming soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. So when you look at Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira, this is a very important fight within the division, because if you look at the main event, you have Israel Adesanya versus Jared Cannonier. And then if Adesanya wins this fight, he's kind of cleared out the division. He will have one win over Jared Cannonier, 2 wins over Vettori, 2 wins over Whitaker. He has that destruction of Paulo Costa, and Costa's not even close to a title shot. And he has a win over Gastelum, but Gastelum's not really close to a title shot. So you need a #1 contender, and that's what this fight is. It's a #1 contender fight. You have Sean Strickland, who's coming off 2 big wins against ranked guys. You have Alex Pereira, who, let's be real here, the UFC is trying to fast track him to a title shot. He's not even currently ranked. They're booking him against Sean Strickland, who's currently ranked #4 in the world, and they're looking to rebook Adesanya versus Pereira in MMA. Adesanya and Pereira have the history in kickboxing. Pereira has 2 wins over Adesanya in kickboxing, and the UFC really loves that storyline. It's a very interesting storyline, and I think they booked him against Sean Strickland in the hopes that Sean Strickland would keep this fight standing and Pereira would have a chance against Sean Strickland. And if he beats Sean Strickland, they can give him a title shot against Adesanya if he's still the champion. Obviously, if Jared Cannonier wins, then there's a massive wrench thrown into the plans, because you have to probably run that back. Depending on how Cannonier would win, you would probably do Adesanya Cannonier too. But if Adesanya does win, I think no matter what, he will fight the winner of Sean Strickland versus Alex Pereira. So you look at the tail of the tape, Sean Strickland is ranked #4. Alex Pereira is not even ranked. Sean Strickland is 31. Pereira is 34. Strickland is 6'1". Pereira is 6'4". Strickland has a 76-inch reach and Pereira has an 80-inch reach. So a 3-inch height advantage for Alex Pereira and a 4-inch reach advantage for Alex Pereira. Coming into this fight, Sean Strickland is on a 6-fight win streak. His last fight was against Jack Hermansson in February of this year, where he basically just outstruck him. It wasn't a particularly flashy performance, but he just outboxed him, pumped the jab. I think he dropped him at the end of the second round, but the bell kind of saved him, and just outboxed Jack Hermansson, stuffed the takedowns, picked him apart on the feet. And Sean Strickland has deceptive power. He's not like an Anthony Rumble Johnson where he has this nuclear power, but he really busts guys up on the feet. The fight before that, he defeated Uriah Hall. This was in July of last year. Dominated Uriah Hall on the feet, mixed in the grappling, took him down, controlled him on the ground for small periods of time throughout the fight. But just overall, just absolute shutout against Uriah Hall. You look at performances before that, not against the best competition, but not terrible competition. You have Christos Jocko, Brandon Allen, Jack Marshman. His last loss was all the way back in 2018, and I believe that was at welterweight. So I don't really think that means a lot. I mean, that was 4 years ago. He hasn't lost in 4 years. And if you look at Sean Strickland's record, he has a great record. He has 28 pro MMA fights, and he's 25-3, 10 by knockout, 4 by submission, and 11 by decision. So he primarily wins by decision, but not by much. He has quite a few knockouts as well. You look at Alex Pereira, and he does not have very many pro MMA fights. He has 6 pro MMA fights. He's 4-1. He lost his MMA debut, but that was all the way back in 2015. I don't know if he was taking it seriously then, but he got signed with the UFC last year, and he made his UFC debut at UFC 268. That was the Kamaru Usman-Colby Covington 2 card, November of last year. And this fight, it did not look like it was going to go well for him. He was getting out-grappled in the first round. He had some moments on the feet, but he got taken down, controlled, and he was being controlled up against the fence. And it did not look like this fight was going to end well for him. He comes out in the second round, I think within 30 seconds into the second round, lands a nasty flying knee and brutally KOs Michailidis. His most recent fight was against Bruno Silva, and this was a very competitive fight. I honestly thought Alex Pereira would have an easier time with Bruno Silva. And I know Bruno Silva is a very good fighter, but he's not even a top 15 ranked opponent. He's kind of sloppy on the feet. I really thought Pereira, with his crisp kickboxing skills, I thought he'd be able to pick him apart and probably KO him in the first or second round. but this was a close fight. I scored it for Alex Pereira. I thought it would have been egregious for it to go to Bruno Silva, but you never know with today's judges. But this fight was competitive. I mean, the fight was primarily Pereira outstriking him, but there was a very close first round. The second round was close as well, but I thought Pereira was just landing the more damaging shots. I think in the third round, he hurt him towards the tail end of the third round and maybe could have finished him, but it was like the last 15 seconds or so of the third round. In this fight, Bruno Silva scored a couple takedowns, but, you know, Alex Pereira showed the ability to just pop right back up. He also, as the fight went on, Alex Pereira defended some takedowns. And also, this fight was a high output fight for Alex Pereira. And his stamina looked decent. He was fading a little bit in that third round, but not enough that it was super detrimental to his performance. You know, he still looked decent, and it was a very high output fight. I hate when people are constantly like, oh, his stamina is suspect and this and that. You know, they said it about Rafael Fiziev in the Bobby Green fight. But when you have a super high output, of course they're going to be tired towards the tail end of the fight. That's just what's going to happen. You know, he only has the 6 MMA fights, but he has so many kickboxing fights. He has 33 wins in his kickboxing career, 7 losses, so he has 40 total kickboxing fights. He has the 2 wins over Israel Adesanya. 1 fight he won by unanimous decision, 1 he knocked Israel Adesanya out, and that's why so many people want to see Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira in MMA. They want to see this trilogy now in MMA rather than kickboxing. And I think it's a very compelling fight. I'd be very interested to see how that fight went down. But as far as his fight against Sean Strickland, I think this is one of the toughest fights to pick on the card because Alex Pereira is an elite striker. But Sean Strickland just has so much more MMA experience. I feel like he's so much more well-rounded. And we know Sean Strickland has 5-round cardio. We saw him go 5 rounds in his last 2 fights, and he didn't look very tired in those fights either. So we know Sean Strickland has great cardio. This isn't a 5-round fight. This is a 3-round fight, which I think is good for Alex Pereira. I'd be more likely to pick Sean Strickland if it was a 5-round fight. But I think the main question going into this fight is Sean Strickland going to make the grappling a priority? And that's what I wonder about. I asked Chris Curtis about this, who trains with him. He said that Sean Strickland knows what the game plan to win this fight is, which I took as Sean Strickland should go in and grapple. But I wonder with a guy like Sean Strickland, is he going to go in there with some pride, with a chip on his shoulder and say, I can strike with this guy? And I just really don't think that's a good idea. The guy has the height and reach advantage. He's been kickboxing forever. He's an elite level striker. He has power in all of his limbs. And I just don't know if that's a good idea. Now, Sean Strickland has great striking defense, but Sean Strickland is super flat-footed, especially heavy on that lead leg. And I really think Pereira is going to be chopping those legs. But it's all a wonder is, how does Sean Strickland do in the grappling department, and does he make it a priority? Because if it hangs out on the feet, I don't think it's going to end well for Sean Strickland. I think that Sean Strickland is going to come out and try to grapple, but I don't think it's going to be at the level of priority and the urgency that he needs to do. I think he's going to come in there, try to prove a point, strike with Alex Pereira, and I think he's going to get his legs chopped. I think he could have some success with the grappling, and this is a very tough fight to pick. I think this may be the toughest fight for me to pick on the card because there's so many unknowns. Alex Pereira, it's hard for me to forget about him getting out-grappled back at UFC 268 for that entire first round. He got taken down by Bruno Silva multiple times. He was able to pop right back to his feet. And also, Alex Pereira is training with Glover Teixeira. I don't think there's a better grappler you can be training with at this point in your career. Glover Teixeira has great takedowns and great top game. And Sean Strickland is just like, we haven't seen him use the wrestling enough throughout his MMA career. I know people are always saying he has great grappling, great wrestling. We've heard it from a litany of people. But until we see that in the fights, it's hard to accept that. You know, he has to be able to implement it in a fight. And against a long, rangy guy like Alex Pereira, who has great feints, who has power in all his limbs, I think it's going to be very difficult. So my official prediction is going to be Alex Pereira via second round TKO. I just think Sean Strickland is going to strike a little bit more than he probably should. I think he's going to be tentative about the takedown because he's going to be worried about the power coming back from Alex Pereira. I think Alex Alex Pereira is going to be a little bit tentative early because he knows what Sean Strickland wants to do. He knows the blueprint to beat him is to get him down and control him on the ground. He wins his fights standing up. He is a elite kickboxer, and I think he's going to be a little bit tentative early. I think he's going to land some shots. I think it's going to be a very competitive first round. Maybe Sean Strickland gets him down and Alex Pereira works back to his feet, or maybe they end up in the clinch position and Alex Pereira works out of the clinch position and gets a little bit of confidence, builds his confidence up, starts to get the timing for Sean Strickland. I think he's going to be chopping the legs of Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland is very heavy on that lead leg, and also I just feel like Sean Strickland does not move his head enough. I could definitely see this fight. If Sean Strickland goes out there with the mindset, I just have to keep getting him down regardless. I'm going to continue to shoot on takedowns until I have success. If Sean Strickland can do that, I think he can win this fight. I think he can get him down, beat him up on the ground, and maybe even get a submission because I'm not sure the level of jiu-jitsu of Alex Pereira. That's why this fight's so tough to pick because there's so many unknowns in this fight like Alex Pereira's jiu-jitsu. But I think as the fight goes on, I think Alex Pereira is going to defend some takedowns. I think he's going to work out of some clinch positions. I think he's going to get a little bit more comfortable. I think he's going to get a feel for Sean Strickland's timing. And I think he's going to land a brutal punch, hurt Sean Strickland, follow him to the ground, and finish him off with ground and pound. But this is a very competitive fight, and I'm very interested to see how this fight plays out because there's so many unknowns. Is Sean Strickland going to use the grappling? If he does, how much success is he going to have? Has Alex Pereira's takedown defense and grappling defense improved with training with Glover Teixeira? It's just so many unknowns in this fight, and that's what makes this fight so tough to pick. But just looking at the head movement, the reach advantage, the height advantage of Alex Pereira, combined with, the heavy on the lead leg, even Jack Hermanson was chopping the legs of Sean Strickland badly. I just think Alex Pereira will be able to work out of some of these bad positions. I don't think Sean Strickland is going to go 100% into grappling mode. I think he's going to try to strike with him and mix it up just because he has a chip on his shoulder or something along those lines where he wants to prove a point. And I think Alex Pereira is going to clip him in that second round and finish him off by TKO. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.